a previous East Main district from 2018 that we're culling a lot of the ideas and the information from for what the product will be. Of course, staff will create a report that has a lot of the information that you had previously received when we discussed this before, further details, mapping, finalized mapping, a survey will need to be conducted because to have the metes and bounds of the district and all the legal parameters of that. So we will process that further, and then the CPA will be to change the guidelines or modify the guidelines to include that district as the other commercial districts are currently in the guidelines. That will include maps, the same kind of information that you see about the other commercial guidelines. So the process forward, a lot of the information we already have. Today I pulled from the old 1980 National Register nomination, which gave the description, gave pretty good description of the buildings that we already have descriptions for. That district was smaller than the local district we're proposing that pushes up north a little bit more than the original one that was mostly along Main Street. Now we're going up a little bit north, so we'll have to develop historical, the history of the architect, et cetera, all the things about those buildings so that that can be included in the final report that goes to, that is here. Well, we've discussed the procedure before, here, and then planning and zoning, and gets notified. They'll provide feedback, and then it'll go to City Council for adoption. Upon adoption, we got it. We have the new district. So we're in the next month or few, we will be putting together the packet to have something to the official packet. But right now it's just to let you know, that's the path forward. That's how we're intending to proceed, because that's the precedent from East Main, and I think other districts were processed through the same procedure or application type. It's not really a certificate of appropriateness because it's not design review, so it'll be through those other procedures. And I stand for questions, I guess, if that's the procedural.
Does anybody have any questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question. Richard, what do you think the timeline on this, getting this through to City Council is?
I would say for staff resource purposes and the things we need to pull together with the associate, I would like to bring this up too, maybe the possibility of establishing a committee with some of staff and some of the commissioners involved in how we do generate the data that we do not yet have. And so with that and how long it will take to create a report, like I say, there is an existing report that can be culled and modified, and so some of the work's been done before. It's just changing it to make it relevant. I would say it would take, I would guess it would take us 2 to 3 months as staff. Would you say that's fair, to be able to get it to a point where it can go through, and then it'll go through, well, you can do the procedure.
I think that's fair for staff work. There are some timelines dictated in code. It's actually kind of a weird process in that code says we have to transmit this to the Planning and Zoning Commission first for a recommendation, and then there it says, and then in not less than 60 days after that, we take it to the HPC for a hearing. So we got kind of, it's not a maximum, it's a minimum. So, there's certainly some staff time involved here. Prepare that research and report that the code talks about. We'll need to prepare and submit an actual application. So staff will prepare and submit that application. Richard mentioned the CAR number. That's a rezone. A CPA is a comprehensive plan amendment. Comprehensive plan amendments can only take place every 6 months. Or can only be heard every 6 months. So we're going to have some timing aspects there to work through. But that's probably the biggest question mark in terms of timing, is that CPA only getting to council once every 6 months. We can work on that staff preparation, get through that. There's some outreach needs to be done. I think certainly as a minimum, let the folks in the district, the property owners, know that this is proceeding prior to the application. I think 2 to 3 months of staff preparation is fair, and then to get through the process, I think probably another 2 to 3 months. They're probably looking at 6. That's my best guess, around a 6-month timeline.
And what options should be before the change of the zoning code implementation? Should we wait?
The zoning code, yeah, that's a good question, and I kind of talked through that a little bit. So the zoning code rewrite is adopted and will be effective in December. That is an automatic conversion of zones. So we would add an H to this C5 DD zone. So it would be C5, it'd probably HDD actually. So that means historic with downtown design review. So it becomes this historic and design review zone. That will be converted to what's called MX5 in the new code. That happens automatically through that rezone process. So it's not something that this commission will have to consider. We'll proceed now, and then once the new code is in effect and that new zoning map is in effect, it'll just get converted. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Madam Chair, if I may. So given that in December the rewrite will go into effect, when are we expecting a CPA to occur? Are we expecting that within 6 months, 6 months after the zoning code goes into effect?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Montoto, I did need to look and see when the last CPA was or when we have one upcoming. Because that really dictates. It's not like it happens in July and it happens in January. It's 6 months from the last one, so we'll just have to figure out when that is. Don't quote me on this, but I think in the new code we took that out because that is not actually state law anymore.
Oh, okay.
We had that in our code even though state law changed in regards of how often we can do comprehensive map amendments. So we'll check on that and get back to you. That'll be part of kind of this research and report writing we do.
Great, thank you.
And Madam Chair, I guess to that same point, so if there are potentially other comprehensive plan changes that would be heard at the same time, possibly? Mm-hmm. Okay. Right.
Are we anticipating any sort of pushback, or do these things usually go pretty smoothly? Do you know?
Well, there could be like the ownership pushback, but that would just be a part of the education process for what does this mean and what does this not mean, and what can you still do to your property. Some people may have the misconception that they can't do interior changes, so just to clarify with people that you still have a lot of property rights if it does become a commercial historic district, but front-facing, there are, of course, the design guidelines that you have to meet, and just to try to help people, coach people through that. And as far as positive feedback, it was kind of a captive audience, but Preservation Idaho did an action alert, and we got 57, and counting. I'm also counting the ones after the deadline that was given because people are still communicating with me, but lots of support from the preservation community, but that should be expected. But we haven't done the initial outreach to the owners. I have compiled a list of the addresses of all the property owners as far as I could discern a couple months ago.
Madam Chair, I have another question. I think we discussed it initially when we first were having this discussion, but could you, or do you know, Richard, if any of the properties within the potential historic district currently have facade easements?
I think a few of them did, and I had
That's what I
somewhere
thought.
in my system is a map where I popped all those up. So that
Excellent. So then, and that being said, the property owners, several of them should already be familiar with front facade limitations.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I can think of 3
Yeah.
at least within this district that have facade easements. You've got the Owyhee, you've
Right.
got the New Avery Hotel, you've got the
Alaska Center?
Yeah,
I thought so,
that building, and then on the south side of Maine, you've got the Smith Block.
Idaho as well.
And there's at least 4.
Okay.
Quite common in this area of town.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
You said about a subcommittee. Would that be something that we do now? create, or?
We could, couldn't we? We could just, just kind of a staff. No more than three, though. So here's one. And then I guess we could pull two from the commission, if you wish.
Do we have volunteers who are interested?
I am interested.
Commissioner Malloy? Others?
Trying to understand time commitment, but yes, I think I would be interested as well. I mean, I work in the district, potential district, so that would be great.
All right. Well, there we go.
Excellent.
Then there were three.
Easy. All right, any other questions? No?
The only last piece I'll add is certainly understand the excitement and interest in this from the commission, and we will work on this, as a priority project. Just understanding staff resources and limitations. I think that 2 to 3 month staff preparation time that Richard mentioned, I think takes that into account. But we will absolutely start to diligently move forward on this, get that application submitted, and get it in the process. So just that comment.
Great, thank you.
With that, Madam Chair, I think we can run through the agenda real quick and then give you some time to relax and eat. So a fairly busy agenda tonight. We do, at the beginning of the hearing, have a couple of revised findings for adoption from the last hearing. They were reversals of the staff recommendation. So there are findings and conditions of approval to adopt for both of those. Those can be placed on the consent agenda. If you want to discuss them and pull them off, that's great. It's just they aren't public hearings, so it would just be discussion and voting amongst the commissioners and no public comment on those two. That's A and B, the two revised findings.
Okay. Does anybody want to hear those, or are we okay moving those to the consent agenda? Consent? Okay. Excellent.
Perfect. Item number 1 is a deferral. You have seen this one before, and we will hear that one. That's the duplex on McKinley. Mm-hmm. Item number 2, another deferral, had some issues with postings, not getting their site postings up. We will hear that one as well. Okay. And that's a new detached garage with an ADU above on 7th Street. Number 3, on McKinley Street as well. This one was deferred last month, if you recall. There was some requests for some modifications to the structure to be made and some additional outreach with the neighborhood. The applicant has spoken with the East End. They have submitted some revised drawings. We have changed our recommendation to that of support. My understanding is East End will be here to speak on in that regard as well. We do have an additional letter of support from a neighbor as well. So the applicant took that design, dropped it to what would meet a 1.5-story standard by our code by reducing the size of the dormers. And I'll present all that, of course, but our recommendation is approval on that one. Item number 4, and we'll hear that one. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. We'll hear item number 3. Item number 4, the applicant did not post the site in time, so that one will be deferred to July's hearing. Item number 5, we are working with the applicant on some modifications to that one to become a project closer to what the guidelines envision. So they are also requesting deferral to July's hearing, and that's the 31st. Item number 6, a new detached garage with an ADU above on North 5th Street. We would propose that one for the consent agenda if there are no concerns.
All right. Does anybody want to hear that, or are we okay moving that to the consent agenda? Consent?
Item number 7 is it's altering the character-defining facade and constructing a second story on Ada Street. We will hear that one. Item number 8, modifying a previous approval to alter the character-defining facade on North 20th Street. We would propose that for consent.
Any objections, or can we move that to consent?
Consent, yeah.
Fantastic.
Item number 9 is again altering the character-defining facade on a contributing structure on North 18th Street. The staff recommendation is denial on that one, so we will hear it.
Okay.
And then the final item on North Harrison Boulevard to alter the character-defining facade again. We would propose that one for consent if there are no concerns.
We all okay moving that to consent, or does anybody? Consent?
Okay, that sounds great.
Fantastic. Thanks, Josh.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you soon. All right, Madam Chair, I can start with opening statement if you'd like.
Great, thank you. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by City Council. We make a final decision on certificate of appropriateness applications. Any decisions made tonight may be applied to the City Council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting, so that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report, there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed. A few minutes, staff will detail the order. And it'll go staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Pape.
Here.
Kosky. Maroney.
Here.
Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Otter. Parks.
Here.
5 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. All right. So we have several items for the consent agenda tonight. I'll start by placing item. The first item will be our May 22nd meeting minutes on the consent agenda without any objection. All right. The next item will be item number 8, DRH 23-00110. This is a revised findings for a certificate of appropriateness to relocate and expand an existing detached garage and construct an ADU above a property on a single-family residential with a historic overlay zone. We heard this at our last meeting, and this is just the revised findings. Item number B, which is DRH 23-00113, which is also revised findings for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new 2-story detached garage on a property in medium-density residential with historic overlay zones. Again, we heard this at our last meeting, and this is just the revised findings. The next item for our consent agenda is item number 6, DRH 23-00147. Which is a certificate of appropriateness to construct a new detached garage with an accessory dwelling unit above the property on a single-family residential historic overlay zone. Is the applicant here for DRH 23-00147?
Yes.
Great. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions in the staff report?
Yes.
Fantastic. Is there anybody present to testify in opposition of this project? I don't have anyone on my sign-in sheet. Anybody online? All right. Seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and move item number 6 to the consent agenda. The next item up for the consent agenda is item number 8, DRH 23-00169. That's at 1800 North 20th Street, a certificate of appropriateness to modify a previous approval to alter the character-defining facade on a property in a single-family residential historic overlay zone. Is the applicant here? Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Fantastic. Is there anyone present to testify in opposition of this project? No? All right. Hearing none, we will move item number 8 to the consent agenda. Let me make sure I don't have anybody on my sign-in sheet. Oh, okay. And then the final item up for consent is DRH Item number 10, DRH 23-00174. It's at 1711 North Harrison Boulevard, a certificate of appropriateness to alter the character defining facade on a property in a single-family residential with historic overlay zone. Is the applicant here or online? No. So we defer it?
Madam Chair, the recommendation was approval, and the applicant, to my knowledge, is in agreement with the condition, so I think we can go ahead and place it on consent.
Okay, great. Is there anyone to testify in opposition of this before I move it? Okay, seeing none, we will add that on the consent agenda, and I will wait for a motion for consent for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Clerk, can you please call?
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Thank you. We have a couple items up for deferral. The first one is item number 4. DRH 23-00121. It is at 2123 West Eastman Street, appeal of administrative denial of certificate of appropriateness to allow vinyl windows on a property in R-1CH, which is single-family residential with historic overlay zone. Is anybody present and was wanting to testify that could not return on July 31st? Let me double check my sheet up here. All right, so we'll go ahead and move that to deferral. And the next one is item number 5, DRH 23-00122, which is at 616 East Crawl Street, certificate of appropriateness to construct 3 single-family homes on consecutive substandard lots of record on property in a medium-density residential with historic overlay zone. This is also being deferred to July 31st. Is there anyone wanting to testify who could not return on July 31st? No? And I don't have anybody signed up. All right, so we will go ahead and defer that as well. I think I need a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Montoto.
I move to defer item number 4, DRH 23-00121, and item number 5, DRH 23-00122 to the July 31st, 2023 hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Park. Please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. All right, so we will move on to the agenda items that we'll be hearing tonight. The first one is item number 1, DRH 23-00039. This was deferred from May 22nd. It is at 811 East McKinley Street. It's a certificate of appropriateness to construct a duplex on a property in medium-density residential with a historic overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
Hot mic. This is a return of the application that we recently looked at as for the duplex at 811 East Crawl Street. It's going to remain 2 stories as it was before, but the applicant is here to provide testimony as to how that is appropriate. Another thing that the Commission requested in the previous meeting that has been addressed was the desire to have some storage space, and that has been added to the rear of the properties. As a reminder, this is the site. The site is vacant from former DRH applications. A non-contributing or reclassified non-contributing structure was removed. The adjacent properties you see here are a combination of 2 stories, 1 and 1.5 stories. There are 2-story structures, multifamily, 2-story structures adjacent to the property. Here's the revised site plan. As you can see towards the rear, well, you will see here better. Towards the rear, there is the storage space for bikes, et cetera. It was requested. Elevations have remained the same. We still have the same width and height, but as I say, the applicant will show evidence of the adjacency having similar heights. And so that's basically where we're at with this, and we do recommend approval for this application. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Hearing none. All right. We'll now hear from the applicant. If you can come forward and state your name and address. And you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Amanda Bidwell, EV Studio, 8701 West Hackamore Street in Boise. Can you pull up my PowerPoint? Sorry. While he's doing that, just briefly wanted to apologize for being a little bit ill-prepared last week, or the last time I was heard. My grandfather had passed away that morning, and I should have asked someone to cover for me. So I apologize for being ill-prepared with that. Thank you. Okay. So based on feedback at the last hearing, we did add storage to the rear of the building since we had previously eliminated the carports. This was requested to kind of provide some additional storage, conceal bikes and et cetera. This is the wrong. Richard did mention that our height was the same. I did end up reducing the height by a couple of feet just to make sure it would fit in with the neighborhood a little bit better. That came out of the step up to the first floor. It was previously about 3.5 feet, and I reduced that down to about 1.5 feet to reduce the overall size of the structure. So these are the elevations that you guys have seen, and they're just a little bit shorter. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place. One thing I did change, we had walls on the first floor surrounding the porch. That's been reduced to a railing to give it a little bit less bulk. I believe that was a Commissioner Park suggestion. And then I also, in the upstairs, centered some of the windows. The Neighborhood Association had also sent me a few example houses that they would like to see, and so I incorporated some of those details into this as well. The reason I did not yet pursue a 1.5 story option is because we do have precedent surrounding us for 2-story. The owner would like to continue with the 2-story if you're in agreement with that. So this map shows all of the blocks around within the East End district. Red boxes are the 2-story homes, the 1.5 are green, and the rest are blue for 1-story. So you can see there are some 2 stories surrounding us. We also went out and measured adjacent homes. The home directly next door is the same height at 24 feet. There are a couple behind us that are also 24 feet, and some 2 stories adjacent that are 18. And then I took a perspective of our building and photoshopped it into its actual site. You can see it's the same height as the neighboring building. It doesn't look substantially taller than the one on the right. We are still in agreement with all of staff recommended approvals, and we didn't request any variances. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much. Hearing none, we will now go. Is there anyone from the Neighborhood Association here? Excellent. If you can state your name and address.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham, and I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise 83712. And I wanted to say to Amanda that I do appreciate the changes that they made. We had addressed the height, the lack of storage, and some changes in the front of the building to make it look like it fits, in better. It still seems big for that one corner, but they've also done a lot to accommodate the request from us and from city staff. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. I'll now go to our sign-up sheet. I don't have anyone signed up. Is there anybody here or online that's wishing to testify on this item? No? Okay. So now the applicant has a rebuttal. If there's anything else you'd like to add or say? No? Okay. We'll close the hearing and render a decision then. Do we have any motion or discussion on this item?
Madam Chair, I would express appreciation to the applicant as well for working on the project. I think it's come a long way, and given where it started, it looks, I think, will be a very nice project. If there are no other comments or questions from other commissioners, I would move to approve HPCA, or I'm sorry, move to approve DRH 23-00039 with staff recommendation.
Fantastic. Do we have a second or more discussion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Abstain.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstain. Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2. This is DRH 23-00048. This is also deferred from the May 22nd meeting. It's 1721 North 7th Street. A certificate of appropriateness to construct a new detached garage with an ADU above on the property in a single-family residential and historic overlay zone. Staff, may we please get the report?
Yes. Here is the site aerial to give you an indication of the setting, where it is in the city. And the existing site, you can see there is an existing one-story house and an existing garage at the rear of the house. This house had its street frontage addressing the street that is the door that is addressing the street. Anyway, they changed the frontage to be to make this garage currently at the rear of the property, whereas it used to be at the side of the property, so to speak. They are proposing, here's a site plan to give you an idea of what was and what will be. And they are proposing this 2-story garage ADU. And, of course, the design guidelines state that should not overwhelm the neighboring structures in height and should remain a similar range found within the vicinity of the neighborhood properties. The existing home on this site, as I said, is a 1-story building at 15 feet 2. The proposed garage is 21 feet 3 and will therefore be 6 feet 1 taller than the residence as well as many adjacent houses. However, next door, there's a residence with an addition that abuts the alley that is a full 2 stories, and across Eastman, there are 1.5 and 2-story garages and additions that abut the alley. Therefore, staff feels, that the height is appropriate given the adjoining and nearby structure heights, especially as they address the alley. And, of course, Secretary Standard 9 wants to see that compatibility with the historic materials, features, and massing, et cetera, of the property and its environment. And as I said and demonstrated above, the proposed construction is of a compatible size, scale, and proportion and massing of the nearby ancillary structures at least. And therefore, we feel that this does meet the standard. I know we typically want to see the height the same, but this has an extenuating circumstance of what is around it already. for the accessory structure itself and adjacent accessory structures, and a rear addition, as I mentioned before, to a property next door. So this is a slightly unique circumstance where that height difference and that being a two-story structure in the context of what's around it seems appropriate to staff. And with that, the staff recommends approval. I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? No? All right, hearing none. We'll hear from the applicant. If you're present, you can present online, present in person.
Madam Chair, one moment. It doesn't appear as though we have anyone online.
Okay, it's Scott. I'm going to butcher the last name. Noriyuki? Not here. Okay. So do we want to defer it? Okay. So I'll need a motion for deferral.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to defer item number 2, DRH 23-00048, to the July 31st, 2023 hearing based off of the absence of the applicant.
Excellent. Before we get a second, is there any, I don't have anybody on my sign-up sheet, but is there anybody in person or online that wanted to testify on this but can't return July 31st? Nobody online? All right, okay. Open for a second.
Second.
All right, clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 3, which is DRH 23-0060. It's at 702 East McKinley Street, a certificate of appropriateness to construct an accessory dwelling unit above an existing detached garage in a medium-density residential with historic overlay zone. Staff, may we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. So last month, this item was deferred to allow the applicant time to address some concerns, and I will detail those in just a minute. But for a refresher, it is located on the north side of McKinley Street, just east of the Cottonwood Flume. The existing residence is a single-story, minimal, traditional structure, very small in size, and there is a existing detached garage in the rear of the property. So the applicant proposed to construct an accessory dwelling unit above that existing garage and maintain the structure of that garage to be used in the new building. The site plan, again, there's that alley on the north side, McKinley Street on the south, and this structure lies somewhere in the middle of the property, but behind the primary structure. So the applicant did get a chance to submit some revised elevations. They reduced the width of the dormers on the structure to no more than 8 feet in width. The ordinance specifies that story-and-a-half structures are a maximum of 18 feet to the midpoint of the roof, not the peak, and they contain no more than 2 dormers, which are no more than 8 feet in width. So the applicant did revise the structure to comply with the story-and-a-half design. The concerns at the last hearing largely surrounded the massing of the structure. I believe the applicants had communications with the Neighborhood Association. They are here to speak to that. We also received a letter of support from a neighbor, which was included in that late correspondence package, which went out to the Commission. So with those changes to move the structure in conformance with story-and-a-half, we do recommend approval, and I would stand for any questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No? All right, hearing none, let's have the applicant come up.
Good evening. My name is Joe Levitch, 114 East 35th Street in Garden City is my office. I'm the contractor that was asked to create an ADU above the garage. Since the last hearing, there was a large windstorm, and a 60-foot spruce from behind, the property behind, fell onto the structure. but we had it structurally inspected, and it did not destroy it, so it's okay to be built upon. I did meet with the neighborhood association, and I also met with all 3 adjacent neighbors and received 3 letters of support for the project in the way it was designed. Other than that, we did the minor changes to comply with the 1.5-story structure, and I believe that we're all in agreement that we've met the items that were listed. I think the homeowner is also in agreement with the changes, and so I stand for questions at this point if there are any.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing none, is the neighborhood association present?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham. I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise 83712. I wrote this long thing, but Joe addressed them, the things that we talked about, and so did Josh. And after talking to Joe, we definitely support the project as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, and Joe, it looks like you're the only one I have signed up. Okay, perfect. Is there anybody who did not get a chance to sign up that is wanting to testify either in the room or online? No one online? No one in the room? All right. Excellent. You can give a rebuttal.
There were some other key issues I had. One of them in particular was
sorry to interrupt your train of thought. I just need name and address.
Joe Levitch, Levco Builders, 114 East 35th. The one other concern that was addressed, and I think is an important one to to mention, is that the safety of the site was one of the key components of the concern of building in this tight space, and I think we addressed that with the neighborhood association and found a good compromise, and do not believe that the street will need to be blocked off at any time during construction. That was it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Levitch.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll close the hearing and render a decision. Do we have any discussion, or does anybody want to start us off with a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Yep. So I move to approve DRH 23-00060 based on the staff recommendations.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Abstain.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstain. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we'll be moving on to item number 7. This is DRH 23-00164. It's at 403 West Ada Street. It's a certificate of appropriateness to alter the character-defining facade and construct a second-story addition on an existing single-family residence on a property in the single-family residential with historic overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
Okay. Yes. Are you popped up? Oh, sorry. There we go. So here's the aerial image to give you an indication of its location along Ada. This is the as-built photograph of the property. And here's a close-up of staff on one of my when I was doing an inspection and discovered the use of an embossed textured siding. A site plan just for reference. And here's the markup drawings that they submitted showing that they're asking for the modification of the siding to textured because as they had issues getting smooth hardy board at the time of siding the remodel, indicating the locations where it is, which is pretty much all the locations where there is lap siding is the embossed texture material. The staff provided other, the applicant provided other examples of properties that had this, and I did a preliminary analysis of the properties they were mentioning, and a vast majority of them did not have a certificate of appropriateness or go through design review, which is unfortunate. And but they were examples that did not really go through our process. And one of them did have an appeal that was upheld by the city council due to the fact that the siding was not adequately conditioned. And the other ones were either anyway. So I just I did a deep dive on all the ones that they gave as examples, and as I say, the examples that they provided did not seem to have historic design review. And this last one at the bottom did have a certificate of appropriateness for a rear addition, and that did require smooth siding as a condition for the lower one, and maybe at the same time they sided everything, not just the addition. Deeper dive could maybe come up with something, but as I say, for the most part, the examples given didn't go through our process. And the applicant did use a faux wood grain and composite or artificial, anyway, to simulate the wood siding. And per the approved certificate of appropriateness with conditions and per our guidelines, 5.7.4, they were instructed to use a smooth surface material and failed to do so. And as I alluded to, here are the examples that could not be discerned that there were certificates of appropriateness attached to them. And D is the actual condition of approval as per the previous application. And DRH 23-00007, which was requesting the same change as presented herein, that was denied administratively. Therefore, we are here today to the Commission. And with that, staff recommends denial, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No? All right, hearing none, we'll hear from the applicant next. If you could step forward and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Walker with North End Construction. My address is 5262 South Chinook Avenue, Boise. So pretty much I was hired last August on this job, and there was two prior contractors that basically just pushed the job. So I was just hired, and the permits as well as the certificate of appropriateness was just transferred into my name. So I wasn't part of any of that process. Basically, by the time we got to siding, I did get a call from my lumber guy, and he basically stated that he couldn't get the smooth siding that it called for on the plan. So I don't know why I'm nervous. This is so weird. But anyways, so I couldn't get the smooth siding. It was like 6 to 8 weeks out. I did tell the homeowners they were renting an apartment, and point blank, I just didn't know. I didn't know that it had to be textured siding. So really why we're here today isn't because I made a mistake and I'm asking you guys to go ahead and let the modify happen, but to fix the siding, I'm looking at like $24,000 to tear it off, put it back on, repaint it, put the gutters back up. It's just a huge financial burden for me personally, and so that's pretty much why I'm here. Is I understand why you guys even have the rule. I totally agree with the rule. My company's called North End Construction, so I get it, and I should know this rule. I just didn't. So that's pretty much what I'm asking you guys, is to let this one-time modify happen, and I swear to God, I will never do this again. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right, are there questions for the applicant? No? All right. Hearing none, we will hear from the Neighborhood Association.
Hi, Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Madam Chairwoman and Commission, We find the situation difficult for the homeowner since this is not a historic home in the sense of the overall neighborhood. We have sympathy for the homeowner's difficulty in finding product during the pandemic and the issues with the supply chain. However, the permitting agreement with the city is a binding contract, and the board has enforced remediation of wood grain siding on a new build project recently. We hope to foster a community expectation that materials are consistent with the ones listed on building permits and that they're used.
All right, thank you. So now we'll go to the sign-up sheet. Mr. Walker, we already heard from you. Next, I have Walt Baumgartner. You can state your name and address, please.
Walt Baumgartner, 324 West Ada Street.
Thank you.
I'm in my 35th year at that location. I've seen a lot of change in the neighborhood over that time. In the interest of transparency, I want to note that knowing two staff members, I spent 25 years with the City of Boise Public Works Department, and for about 10 years of that time, I occupied a fourth-floor corner office that is approximately above Robert's Head. I worked in a Clean Water Act enforcement program and thought that was a complicated program to implement. I had no idea until I sat down and began to review the rules and regulations of this historic district within which I live. Charlie came to me when this first came up, and I suspect he did so because I'm the old guy in the neighborhood and have seen a lot of change and know a lot of people. And also because he knew I worked for the city and might could lend some insight, and I couldn't. Because from where I stand on my front door, I can look right at Charlie and Liz's house and watch the whole project as it went up. And my wife and I are more than pleased with how they fit the addition into the house, how it doesn't block our line of sight above the roof line. And frankly, when I was made aware of this issue with the siding, I had to walk down to the house and go up on their sidewalk to get a look at it to see what all the hubbub was about. And it dawned on me at that point that the original house, which was brick, the brick is not smooth. It looks like a corrugated cardboard on the side. So I guess in short, I'm here in support of you allowing them and providing them a certificate of appropriateness to be able to keep the siding that they've put on and alleviate the hardship they're going to go through to have to modify this thing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. Do I have other people present and wishing to testify? Yes. Just need your name and address, please.
My name is Charles Finley. I live at 403 West Ada Street in Boise, Idaho. Madam Commissioner, Madam Chair, I am the owner of the home at 403 Ada. My wife and I have lived here since 2011. We love our North End home. We couldn't think of a better place to live and to raise our family. We absolutely love it there. Our original house was a non-contributing, contemporary 1950s ranch-style home, and it's located just 200 feet away from the northern boundary of the North End Historic District. 2 houses away is no restrictions whatsoever. When we designed our remodel, it was our intent to keep the addition and the renovation in harmony with the original style of the home. You know, we didn't want to have to conform to the more bungalow styles that were down the street, which is pretty much every other street on our home. Our house was always the one that stuck out on this home. Today, after having been back in for 6 months, our home still remains, it has that unique feel and character of its original style, and we think it looks really nice. We've had numerous neighbors from up and down the street and from blocks around tell us how nice the remodel is. They told us that This house, one gentleman came and he said, this house looks like it's always been here, like it was built that way from the beginning. We never had any plans to flip this property when we did the remodel. We planned just to add an addition to it so that we could accommodate our growing family. The material that we installed was a high-quality hardy board. We know that this is what the city recommends because of its longevity and its ease of maintenance. It was not our intention to go against city code when we installed the siding. But at the time, the smooth siding was in a critically short supply. This was mid-October. The supplier said it was 6 to 8 weeks out, and we would have been not only paying another month's rent to wait for this material to show up, but we would have also had winter storms lashing at our house with no siding on it. And, you know, we definitely didn't want that. Waiting for that, it would have been a great hardship, but to remove the siding now would be a really big financial burden on our contractor. And not only that, but the environmental impact, the negative environmental impact of tearing off all this siding that is installed and just sending it to the landfill is really detrimental. And I would hope that the city would really consider this if they asked us to tear all this off. And I'd also like you to take a look at the houses that Mr. Jarvis pulled up in our neighborhood that have this siding all around. And, you know, we wonder why you would ask us to tear ours off when they weren't asked to tear theirs off. And in closing, we're sorry that we broke the city code, but for the hardship that it would involve to replace this, we ask for your grace to accept this variance.
Thank you, Mr. Finley. Okay, is there anybody else online or in person willing or wanting to testify on this project? No one online? No one here? All right. The applicant can give a rebuttal if you'd like. Okay. With that, we'll close the hearing and render a decision. Do I have any discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll start off with some discussion. My first thought hearing all of this was exactly the environmental impact of removing the siding to just have it go into the trash. That being said, in our project report, we saw the examples of all of the homes throughout the North End. Just, I'm assuming you went through and said, oh yeah, that one, this one, that one. And it wasn't a full comprehensive look at what the number is, because I'm sure it's probably a lot more than what you even found. But my concern in allowing this or approving the certificate of appropriateness is that by letting this happen, that becomes one more home that we have set an example and precedent for the future where we have more unfortunate cases of people coming forward saying, well, there's this many number of houses that already have it, so why not us? All that being said, being North End construction, working in a historic district, actually 2 historic district neighborhoods, this is something that should be a big learning opportunity for you and a big learning lesson. All that to say, I am, based off of the environmental impact alone of just throwing the siding in the trash and having it sit in a landfill, I would vote to approve this item. But I would be interested to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Other discussion or a motion?
I was also very curious to see what the rest of the commission had to say. Being the new guy on the block, the rules are the rules. And it's unfortunate when, it's pretty clearly spelled out what the rules are and the expectation is, and then that's not what happens. The rule is there for a reason, for a very specific purpose. I'm hesitant to approve it, but I also acknowledge the wastefulness at this point of what we're looking at. but I'd really like to hear some more kind of thought and feedback from Commission.
Madam Chair, I guess I'll give my feedback. It doesn't have to go to the landfill. It can be salvaged potentially if it's done correctly. We've seen lots of cities across the United States implement salvage programs, so I'd even put a stipulation that it has to be salvaged. But yeah, I echo Commissioner Parks. I don't really support approval of this application. The rules are there for a reason, and we keep breaking them. We're not going to have a historic district. So,
I guess I'll give my thoughts. I feel like we know what the rules are. It sounds like this was kind of a mess of, changing contractors and supply chains and all these things. I think salvage is a lovely idea. We currently don't have that program in our city, and so to put a stipulation that somebody has to salvage and figure out where that goes or who they're selling to, I'm not even sure how they would do that. I hate to see this go to the landfill. I also think we're not making other people, all these examples, tear theirs off, even though they're unpermitted and they've used the wrong materials. I think given where this is in the historic district, where it's on the border and it's a non-contributing house, I think I would be with Commissioner Montoto, and I would approve this. But, North End Construction, you're on our radar. I don't want to see you here again. I don't want to have this conversation ever again. So those are my thoughts.
Madam Chair, to add to that as well, I feel like this is a mistake we won't be seeing again. I don't think we ever should see this mistake happen again. I do have to agree that since we do not have salvage programs set up in place that we can forward these manufactured goods towards, it is hard for me, at least, to want to implement that as a standard moving forward. The waste is horrendous, and I don't think I would support. I'm pretty torn. I think overall, I don't ever want to see that happen again. I think I would be in support of denying the product. I'm devastated at the result. It's a broken heart situation either way.
Right. So it sounds like we're looking for a motion, unless anybody has other final thoughts.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Montoto.
I really don't want to have to do this, but I'll move to approve DRH 23-00164 based off of environmental concerns of tearing off the siding.
Do we have a second? Okay, so motion dies. Do we have another motion?
Let's see. I move to deny DRH 23-00164 based on the staff's findings.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Staff, please call roll. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
No.
Montoto.
No.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
3 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, our next agenda item is item number 9, DRH 23-00172, This is at 1401 North 18th Street. It's a certificate of appropriateness to alter the character-defining facade on a property in a single-family residential historic overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. So yes, the applicant has come forward tonight to modify the character-defining facade on a contributing structure in the expanded north end. The property is located at the corner of Reidenbaugh and 18th Street. It is a corner lot, a very small corner lot. The existing residence has a rather unusual front door configuration where it does face to the side within an alcove on the front of the building. So there is a slight covered recess, and where you would typically see a front door face the street, this front door actually faces to the side. So, and you can see that here in the existing floor plan. There is that entry with the cover and that front door that is 90 degrees from the front of the residence. The applicant has come forward and proposed to infill that recess and place a new front door on the front elevation of the property, modifying that character-defining facade. So the guidelines strongly discourage changing the orientation, size, or shape of an entrance, including the relationship to the rest of the structure. Additionally, modifications to overhangs, shadow lines, and front porches that alter the character of the structure are generally discouraged as well. We don't have substantial evidence that was submitted in the packet about if this is the current configuration is the original configuration of the home. If this was a modification made somewhere down the road and it is actually not appropriate, so we made the determination based strictly on the guidelines that change in orientation to a front door is strongly discouraged. Again, we have not seen evidence presented that this was not the original configuration. With that, we have recommended denial of the application, subject to the findings in the staff report. I will mention that after, actually just this afternoon, we did receive some very late correspondence, some letters of support from the applicant's neighbor, so she'll probably mention that in her presentation, but we did get a letter from a neighbor and then also a petition signed by, I believe, 14 individuals in support of this application, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? No? All right, hearing none, we can now hear from the applicant. If you can come forward and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Tiffany King, 1401 North 18th. I bought my house 20 years ago now. And I thought it was going to be my little starter home, and apparently it's my forever home. I've always worked in the neighborhood. I ride my bike, and my son goes to public school. We love our neighborhood. It has changed so much over the last 20 years, and I have always been in support of the beautiful historic homes in our neighborhood. I still have the original light fixtures and the beautiful wood floors that we've had refinished a couple times. We just love everything about it. We just want to utilize the little tiny bit of space that we have. It's a 900 square foot home. We do have a small family. It's just my husband, my son, and I. So we have the 2 bedrooms, and what we would love to be able to do is, as it stands right now, our entryway, the door opens into our tiny little dining area. So the front door actually hits our dining room table, chairs, and it's just really small. So what we were hoping is if we could just move the door a couple feet to the front, then we could use that little enclosed area for our shoes and backpacks and coats, and we could have a proper entryway without having to expand the house at all. Essentially just utilizing the space that we already have was our hope, and not having to change the footprint of the house or anything else. We love the house the way it is, and we just want to use what we have in the best suited way. I did have I've never done this before, so I didn't know what I was coming into, but I had some of the pictures, and I think you guys had most everything up there, but it is the exact same picture that you guys were showed earlier, and you can't really even see the front door. We don't want a new front door. We want to move the existing old historic original door. I do not know. I've tried to go to the city a couple times and see, check on the history of the house. We don't know if that's originally the original configuration of how everything was. They've said that we don't have anything going back far enough to know if it was originally that way or not, the entryway, if that makes sense. When I purchased the house in 2003, the family that I bought it from had said that the door originally had been on the other side of the little tiny alcove, and that then the entryway was the closet of the, because they do crazy things with these little tiny houses, old houses, which I'm sure you know. So again, I don't know if it had already been modified, but the contractor that we would be working with is planning on recycling the siding that's inside the alcove to the outside of the house, and his work has been seamless in the past. He's amazing. And moving that existing same front door to the front of the house, I really feel would showcase the old, beautiful, historic door more than it is now. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me, but.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, and I guess I'm sure I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask, have you done any investigation in the house to see if there is some clue of like dimples in plaster or some sort of hint that the door maybe used to be at a different, well, I guess you've said it used to be on the opposite side of that alcove. Is that alcove even original to the
We don't
house?
know. We don't have any idea.
Like Sanborn maps or anything like
No,
that?
we've looked.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And I had asked, I wanted to know the history of the house even before this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember coming to the city and just being like, tell me all about it.
Yeah.
But really there's nothing.
Okay. Wow.
So, that we could find anyway.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. Mrs. King, staff is, in their findings, have found that this proposed change would negatively impact the integrity of your home, meaning it would negatively impact the integrity of the contributing status of your home. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I feel the porch is cute. I love it. We make everything in our yard, in our house, nice, and it's always well put together. And honestly, I will miss the porch, or I would miss the porch if it were no longer there. But for our family and for the functionality of it, it would just be so helpful. And if you look at the pictures, the ones that that were already up there, I think the change is so small, and I think it would be really nice to have the front door facing the front of the house, especially being the what we believe to be the original old 100-year-old door.
Thank you.
So it would enclose this whole front little porch, and you'd keep the roof line the same?
Yeah,
or?
Nothing else is changing. We're just moving the front door like that 2 feet from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were planning on using the siding from the inside, because we'd sheetrock inside then. But I want to, like, the original light that's in there I'm leaving. Everything in the house is original. And then, little light switches and stuff that had been replaced with, like, plastic. I've gone on Etsy and found, the original brass ones. I love all the old stuff. And we've always tried to keep the integrity of the beautiful old house.
Right. Yeah. And it wouldn't be. And
now
the problem is that when you change the facade like this, then it becomes non-contributing. And so eventually, if you ever sell the house or not, this is now a non-contributing structure. It doesn't have the protection that a contributing structure does. So somebody could alter it drastically.
Oh.
It would be much easier
That would be terrible.
to demolish if, for whatever reason, you were to sell or your family were to let go of the home. It would be a lot easier to demolish it and put in a new structure.
Which I had no idea, and I
Right.
would
And
never
so that
want
was
that to happen.
my question was, understanding that this staff has found that this change would negatively impact the contributing status of your home.
Is there a way that it wouldn't?
Well, to not do it, I would think would be.
It feels like a very small change, but
right.
But the protections are for homes that haven't had those changes,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And so,
No, I mean, the protections are there for a reason,
right?
And I would, I've always said that. Oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine.
Right, I
if
can
we
hear
ever
it like
sold
the way
the
you talk
house.
about the light fixtures and the light
Yeah.
switches and stuff, right? And so, yeah,
would never
it
want
seems
anyone
like
to
such
tear
a
it
small
down.
change, but then it does jeopardize the contributing status of your home.
So there's nothing
Well-
other than not doing it that we could do to preserve that.
So I don't think that once you make that change, you could have like an easement or anything, could you? Right? Like because it's been altered significantly, it's no longer contributing. You can't put those protections on it anymore, correct?
It depends if the city wants to take on an easement, and it depends on, I mean, you could put deed restrictions on the property, but I think what she should do is just a little bit more research.
I would echo that.
Sanborn maps and whatnot.
Looking at, Madam Chair, looking at knowing or having heard that this was not the original placement of the front door, if you could do some additional research, the library has a database that has really great, is a really great resource, and also looking at Sanborn maps to see if there's any documentation anywhere of that original placement of the front door, and then if you could prove that or find photos or something, permits maybe even.
Okay.
Then that way this would be more of a restorative change as opposed to a major facade alteration.
Okay.
Yeah, like Commissioner Parks said, are there dimples? Like, does it look like there used to be a door somewhere? Like, is there, wear from a door on the floor or something like that? Like these clues that could...
we've refinished the
Right.
hardwood floors. We did right before we had our son 20 years ago, and then again just recently. And it's in his closet where those dimples would have been. And
right.
Or all sorts of clues to like the floor molding, the shoe mold along the wall. If there's a slice that's obviously been replaced,
right?
Or the Sanborn maps, that might provide those clues or some sort of justification that helps us and you to have something to hang our hat on, that we're not doing something that jeopardizes the status of the home, that we're merely modifying something that wasn't original in the first place.
Okay. But then, so now if I do my research and I find that the door used to be on the opposite side, it doesn't mean that the door was on the front where I would like to put it. So then,
I think that's a debate I'd be interested in hearing, because maybe that's something that couldn't be done at this point in time, or
or perhaps maybe the placement of the door isn't a major character defining, since it had been altered at least twice.
Okay.
And so we could maybe make that argument a little bit easier. It's just that proof that would need to be presented.
But also not to guarantee that whatever you find, oh yes, obviously we would approve it. It would be something we would need to review and adjudicate and go through the process. But I think that would at least give us something to give some justification.
Yeah. And then just hypothetically, I don't know the whole process. So if you guys deny it today, then I go do my research and then I come back on the 31st, correct?
So you would talk to staff. It wouldn't just be, depending on.
Could we defer
to the 31st?
Let's defer tonight.
Okay.
And you take this month to research and figure
See what
out
I can find.
anything you can.
Okay.
And then we'll talk next month.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your patience in like asking questions and going through the whole
Yeah,
process, because it is confusing.
I appreciate you guys the same.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I was going to ask, so you'd like to testify? Can you not come back on July 31st or, okay. Josh?
Madam Chair, I would recommend taking testimony of folks that are here tonight. This
Okay.
was not proposed for deferral before tonight, so to be fair to folks who attended, we should take testimony
Excellent.
and then you can make a decision about whether to defer or not.
Okay, sounds perfect. So let's hear, so first I'm going to, do we want to hear from the Neighborhood Association first? Excellent, and then we'll go through the whole order. Thank you.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. I'm basically going to mimic exactly the conversation you guys had. This is a contributing house with the historic guidelines say to take particular caution in altering the front facade, and that we can't at this time without knowing the history support, but that I would like to, check the siding and the molding on the outside and see, if there's evidence that it was in a different spot. So,
Great, thank you. All right, so now hearing from the Neighborhood Association, we'll open it up to the public to testify. If we can get your name and address, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kelly Smith Eichmann. I live at 1711 Harrison Boulevard. We were here for our home, and thank you for approving it. We really appreciate it. We just are putting in new windows and stuff.
Excellent.
Making it better, just like Mrs. King. And I've been selling real estate in the city of Boise for over 40 years. And my great-grandfather was the first school teacher in Boise in 1860s. He homesteaded in the North End in 1863. That's why it's Smith Avenue, Brenneman, Taft, and those are all from my family. My father was Richard B. Smith. He started the Highlands in 1955. And they said it would never be anything but Slaughterhouse Gulch. And he proved them wrong. Thank the Lord. So, having sold real estate in the North End all these years, I really, really, really hope you will approve her front door move. Because the way it is odd, and it would make her house better for resale and for just the look in the neighborhood. It will look better and make our neighborhood, I live close to her home, and it would just make everything better. So please, please approve it for her. And thank you for your time that you spend doing this, because it's a tough job. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, so you have the opportunity for rebuttal if you want to say anything else.
I just wanted to say thank you. You're welcome. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close our hearing and get a motion for deferral if that's what we want to do, or any other motion or discussion.
I'll make a motion for deferral. So I move to defer DRH 23-00172 to the July 31st hearing with the intent that the owner will do some property research.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Clerk, please call roll.
Pape.
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
All right. Thank you. That's what we have for tonight. We'll see some of you July 31st.